We look for them everywhere. I feel I'm a Sherlock Holmes because I'm sort of always searching. And firstly, the statistics are incredible. We have 40 artists from 20 different countries, which is quite amazing. And it's actually like a mosaic. We have conductors and soloists like Andres Schiff or Barenboim, or the great conductors who have suggestions always. We search ourselves. We go to agencies. We have people who are applied directly to us. And of course, YouTube is a great thing these days. You can check on people. But it is a long process, and we try and find people who already have some affinity to Mozart. This was one of the reasons we started this situation of recording all the Mozart concertos, because in COVID's time, we felt a lot of artists were not getting the opportunity to do anything, actually, let alone record and start their careers. So Thomas Pfiffer and I, we decided to make this series, and we went through, and anyway, that's it, yeah. Yeah. Generally, yes. They were, or we took over one artist and asked them who would they like to play with, and they had a partner. So that was actually quite easy to sort out. The process of selecting people is. There's always an element of luck in that as well, of course, but I'm always looking for artists who have something to say, who have a language which is already there. They have their way of interpreting. They're interesting, and not just somebody playing the notes, because there are many artists who just do that. And I'm always looking for the exceptional, for the different, and whether it's an introvert player or it's an extrovert player, it doesn't matter, as long as they have something to offer. And of course, interpreting Mozart is a great challenge for everybody, because Mozart's like looking in the mirror. If you look in the mirror in the morning, you say, oh, gosh, yeah, okay. And Mozart's exactly, you hear everything with Mozart. You hear if it's not in tune, you hear if it's not together, you hear if it's not well phrased. And on top of all that, you need a vitality to interpret the music. And so it's a great challenge. And many orchestras use Mozart as an audition piece to start the audition behind the curtain. They often play behind curtain. They play Mozart, and the elimination is maybe from 50 to 8. You know, it's quite a strong process, difficult process. That came about through capacity. In the beginning, after COVID, the orchestra had lots of capacity. But of course, as the concert series started again, we found ourselves, we didn't have enough time with this orchestra. So we decided to use 3 orchestras. The Kamerad Schweiz is basically an orchestra I've been associated with many years. And the other 2 orchestras I came to for this project. In the beginning, we took a while to find my sound that I like for Mozart. But you'll find, I think, that pretty much all the recordings, the orchestra sounds pretty much the same, because I have a concept that I believe in, and we managed to get that very quickly. And I come here now, for example, to Vienna, and within seconds we have the Howard Griffiths Mozart sound, if you want to call it that. I wouldn't call it that, but just to say that I have a concept, and I have a sound. Klang, a sound of Mozart that I want to hear, and the transparency, but the vitality with the transparency, the articulation, all these things. And I have special bowings to get that sound I want. So this is now become almost a tradition here in these orchestras. Very good. I work with Nicholas Hanenko a lot. So he was certainly a inspiration for me, although I also, with any artist that you admire, there are aspects you like and you take on board, and there are aspects you don't like. And that's surely the same with Hanenko for me. There are some things I like, and I learned a lot from him, but I have some things I don't like. But then, I also like the more traditional ways of performing, but I still think... like Hanenko, I hate this terminology, historically informed performances. I think it's horrific. I mean, we just want a lively Mozart sound which gives the emotions that he saw in his writing over to the public. So we produce these emotions, and in Mozart's concertos, they're like operas. They're like mini operas. And the emotion of an opera is, in the piano concertos is just as deep. I mean, there are two levels. You have this upper level where you can just appreciate this nice music, but underneath, there's so much more. And for example, just now in the last recording of the whole series, we're doing the Jeune Homme or the Jeune Homme concerto, Köchler-Versaitis 271, and this has so much humor in it. I mean, it starts with the orchestra playing ding, ba da ba ba ba, and then the piano answers immediately, which was in those years totally unheard of. I mean, he was one of the first composers to do something like that. But when it comes back, instead of the orchestra playing the first bar, the piano plays it as a joke. I mean, he turns it all around. And in the slow moment, it's incredibly dramatic. You have this minor key, G minor. It's incredibly sad and almost painful, the sort of tension he creates. And the last moment, you have this fun again. But in the middle of the fun, he writes a minuet. I mean, it's just amazing. And although I've rehearsed, recorded, and performed all of his concertos over the years, it's been a pleasure to come back to them now. Totally. I think you can hear also some of the early concertos already have a large orchestra, which was not normal. I mean, he had trumpets. I've forgotten which concerto it is now, but one of the concertos at the beginning, he uses quite a large orchestra, and already you can hear the winds are getting slightly emancipated. And of course, as the years go on, the winds become totally emancipated, as do aspects of the strings, the violas and the basses. Sometimes he uses two parts in the viola group instead of just having one and doubling the cellos and basses. They become emancipated. So. But you see all this in the early concertos, all his early music. I often perform in concert some of his works he wrote as a child almost, like Galimatis Musicum. There's a ballet suite as well. It doesn't matter. And you hear there, although he's under his father's guidance, you already hear this cheekiness in his music, that he's already finding his voice and his style, and not conforming so much to the convention of those days. Definitely. I mean, also in Salzburg. I mean, the early concertos we were doing in Salzburg, and it's like going in a holy temple. You know, there's Salzburg, and we're playing Mozart there and recording the Mozart concertos. And here in Vienna, of course, where he lived longer. Actually, he lived longer in Vienna than he did in Salzburg, and he had his biggest successes here in Vienna, and wrote many of the concertos for subscription concerts, because that was the way he could make money in those years, by writing concertos and performing them himself, or getting commissions. So it is like bringing it home almost. And I think the artists feel it too. I think a lot of them are very nervous when they come the first time, and for some of them it's the first recording they've ever made. And the one thing I impress on them is that they have to have stamina, because they don't realize that we start recording in the morning at 9 o'clock here in Vienna, and we finish at 3 o'clock. And we do that every day. So it's an incredibly challenging time, which requires a lot of stamina. And of course, a soloist comes totally prepared, but the orchestra needs just a little bit of time to get their understanding of the work. I always say you need to verdauen before you can interpret. Verdauen is, what's verdauen? Digest. You have to digest the music before you can interpret it. So it just takes a little time. So I tell the artists, don't be too passionate at the beginning. Just stay cool. And then after 10, 15 minutes, when the orchestra's at that level, then we can start to perform. And of course, we perform a whole movement. We do it again, and we do bits. And I mean, it's a very tiring process for the soloists. We do both. We do both. We do long takes. Like today, we did, today we did a whole movement, then we did blocks, and then we did the whole movement again. Yeah, so you're covered finally when you've done the blocks. We do big blocks, though, not sort of, and it can be that you do sometimes just 5 bars because there's one duff note there somewhere. That can happen, but we try and do long takes or whole movements. It's much more flowing, and it has more cohesion with the whole movement like that. But also we can do smaller blocks as well if it's necessary. No, it's different. We've had for Vienna always Erich Hoffmann, who is wonderful, and I love working with him. In Zurich and in Salzburg, we had a couple, but always the same two, basically, in those two cities. So, and I've worked with all of them. I like to use tonemeisters I know, because you know if you can trust them or not. If Eric says I have it, even if I feel we might not have it, if he says I have it, I trust him because I know we do have it then in the end, and it works. Yeah. Yes, Bärenreiter. Yeah. The orchestra had one where they had Breitkopf, but basically Bärenreiter. I mean, I use Bärenreiter of all the concertos, and I think the orchestras basically do too. But there's one now with Breitkopf for the last concerto, but otherwise, yeah, Bärenreiter. No, they're the best edition, and everything's the articulation, everything is very clear then. No, we've done all the concertos on Bösendorfer, and it's a new one, the new Bösendorfer, which is absolutely fabulous. I've been music director of 2 big orchestras, and both of them we bought Bösendorfers actually, not Steinway. Steinway, of course, are very good, but for Mozart, Bösendorfer I would say they have more colors. I mean, I think that the colors that you can produce more flexible, a bit more warmth, which is perfect for Mozart and chamber music. It's absolutely beautiful. So we're very, very happy to have Bösendorfer. And we've been exclusive with them for this whole series. But that was a decision we made bewusst.
Intentionally. Intentionally?
Intentionally. It was an intentional decision to use Bösendorfer because we thought it would match Mozart. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much the same size. 2 basses, 8 firsts. Sometimes it depends on the work. Sometimes 8/8, sometimes 6/6. But basically the same size orchestra. Not too big, not too heavy. Try and keep it light. We even use natural trumpets in Salzburg. And in fact, one of the Mozart horn concertos, we did with a natural horn, just to give it with the 4 concertos, 3 with traditional horns and 1 with a natural horn. Yeah. That was very difficult, actually. That was probably the most challenging decision we had to make. We actually decided to have the big piano concertos in 2, so that was fairly clear. But the other concertos, then we try to match them up style-wise or instrument-wise. So we have sort of like an early piano concerto, early violin concerto, and maybe a horn concerto because they were early. So we've tried to keep them pretty much like that. Wasn't always possible, but that's sort of the basic idea behind it. I dream of one day having this on streaming services in the order, so you can see the order of all his concertos in the Kernel-Verzeichnis, the order, and so somebody can click on and go through the whole repertoire and hear how he developed. That would be amazing. I don't know if it's possible, but it would be nice. Yeah, we've done quite a few, and we've got a few coming up. Next year with the Mozart Orchestra, we're going to tour with a couple of artists. With Camerata Schweiz, I've done quite a few concerts, and yeah, we try and also carry on supporting the artists, and I recommend them a lot. I took Claire Huanji, who was one of the soloists, to Dortmund. I was in Dortmund Philharmonic last week, and she played with me there. Melody Chow is playing with me in Turkey next year. So, I try and take the artists and if I can present them somewhere, I try and do that to help their career.